All right, it's 7 o'clock and we're going to get started. Hey guys, we're going to try a different format today. So please raise your hand. We would love for everybody to participate because this is kind of a let's read session. And we today have Naheed Phiroze Patel as we talk about her new book. It's called A Mirror Made of Rain. I think you guys probably have all seen it because it's been covered in quite a lot of the Indian newspapers and it's been written about. So we're very excited to have her. So it's a brilliant coming of age novel. It's layered with a lot of themes. And some of the themes is how to overcome a dysfunctional family relationship, misogyny, inherited trauma, addiction, mental health. And the main character of the book is Noomi Wadia. She has a penchant for getting into trouble and struggles, as many of us do, with a fraught relationship with her mother. So she grows from this lonely, wild-hearted teenager to a troubled adult who finds love, but not happiness. So we're going to talk a lot about it. We've got Naheed with us. So welcome, Naheed, first of all, to Sipping Thoughts, and a very big congratulations on your novel.
Oh, no, you're too kind. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to be talking about the book with you and with the audience. And yeah, I'm really thrilled.
So let's just dive right in, guys. I would also love to get all of your questions. So please keep typing, and we would love to unmute you so that we can also hear what your thoughts are. So first of all, it's receiving a lot of praise. So Udyan Mitra, who's the publisher of HarperCollins, says The Mirror Made of Rain is an exceptionally accomplished first novel. A book that is going to be thought of and talked about for a long time to come. How does that feel when you publish your first book and it gets such a good review?
It's a very humbling experience because Udayan and my editor Rahul Soni have immaculate taste, and they are, they're amazing critics of literature. So the fact that they are so excited about the novel and they praised it so much, for me, I mean, it really puts me in my place, because I think that, somebody who's so well respected in literary circles is, so enthusiastic, then I must have done something right, yeah, so it's a great feeling, but also very, very, it kind of puts you, it gives you a new perspective, So
so first of all, I'd even like to ask the audience, when they hear the title Mirror Made of Rain, what goes into their mind? I know all of us have some image of what is the mirror and what would this look like of rain. And please, you also tell us about the title and what it took to write the book. But I'd also love to hear from the audience what they thought about the title and what was the book about for them when they heard the name.
Yeah, I would love to hear from the audience as well about how the name resonated with them, and trying to, it's very cool. It's very interesting.
So Neeta is writing it's an autobiography or depending on some real incident, or is just fictional. So the book is fictional, I think.
Yeah.
It's mostly a fictional novel, but yes. So tell us about the title itself and what made you write this and your journey about writing this book.
Yeah, so I began writing the book. It is a work of fiction. It is a novel. It is not a memoir or an autobiography. I definitely, like all artists, you definitely draw from experience in life. But, all the situations and the scenes are something that have gone through many, many drafts. So like I said, I started writing in 2014. And
so this has been a long work in progress for you.
Yes, definitely. It is a long, it's kind of like, writing a novel is kind of like a duck swimming on a pond. Is that you only see the duck gliding smoothly, but you don't see the furious paddling that's happening underneath. So if the novel is successful, it kind of looks like it's kind of like an easy, effortless thing. But there's a lot of hard work that goes to make it appear so. So definitely for me, and I'm a slow writer. So for me, it took like a very long time to get things right and various iterations and drafts, and finally what seems like an autobiography is actually a very artificial world that I have taken a very long time to create. But I guess the verisimilitude of the novel makes it feel like it's something that could have happened to anyone, and that's what I kind of wanted to achieve, like a sense that this could really happen, this could really be a thing, so yeah.
And tell us a little bit about the title itself, because Mirror Made of Rain.
Yeah, so when the initial title of the novel was something else, and while I was working with my editor Rahul, he kind of noticed this theme of mirrors. So there are a lot of mirrors in the novel, and even people, like, there's this whole play on mirrors, right? Your mother is your first mirror. And so he was like, we should write about that, because like Noomi really has this strange relationship with mirrors, where, the idea of the self-image and the broken mirror. So we brainstormed, and we thought of all sorts of names, like, through the mirror, girl in the mirror, something. And, a lot of these mirror type titles are actually used for, like, pulpy detective, like the mirror cracked. So it was really difficult. And then Mirror Made of Rain kind of struck me because, there's a lake, and like, they also says like sadness is a lake, and you see your reflection in the lake. And I believe one of the words for lake is chashma, which is actually like glasses, not actually mirror. But so a mirror made of rain is literally like a lake, the lake that is made of precipitation of rain. And it sounded very poetic and it sounded beautiful. So we thought, why don't we use that as the title? So it was a lot of brainstorming, going back and forth. And, we definitely wanted to do something to do with mirrors, but it wasn't like, oh, this is it, So,
yeah, no, I mean, I definitely, the theme of the mirror is definitely very deep in your book, because the question is then, are we all looking for a mirror? Veer, like you said, was the mirror. Veer now is Noomi's husband, was a mirror that made Noomi feel beautiful, while her mother was the mirror that made her feel broken. So when we look at ourselves through different mirrors, and I also almost imagined it as we look at ourselves through the eyes of others, that is the mirror that we're looking at, do we actually take a very different perspective of ourselves?
I think we are very prone to the people that we surround ourselves with. So, there's always the advice is surround yourself with good people, because you're going to be as good or bad as the people that you spend the most time with. And that is definitely a function of, how you perceive yourself, because none of us are, unfortunately, none of us have reached that point where we're completely immune to other people's opinions of us. And so definitely as a child, your mother is the first, you see yourself through the eyes of your mother. And if your mother loves you and is unconditionally, like, has your back, then that's the image that you grew up with. But if your mother, for whatever reason, can't provide that to you, then how do you see yourself? Because the first time you saw yourself through a person's eyes was shattered, was broken. And it may not be the fault of the mother or the fault of the, but that's the self-image that you have in your heart. And how does that change? How does that evolve over time? Because we can't blame our mothers forever, right? Like, we can't blame our entire life on our childhood. So when does that begin to change? And so that was the kind of journey, the trajectory that I wanted Noomi to go on, successfully or not. And so basically that's it.
So no, totally agree, because her journey is about her own self-image and how her self-image is evolving, right? But as she's looking at it through the lenses of various different people. But as the book has said, it's an angry young novel by an angry young woman. So Noomi is like our Amitabh Bachchan version. We had the angry young man, and now we've got the angry young woman. It's not a happy book. And your narrator herself, Noomi, is not a very likable character. She's kind of like an anti-hero. Even until the end, I was kind of like torn. Do I really like her? I could understand maybe what she's going through. But that usually it's this kind of concept of an anti-hero. Talk about that. Because talk about how did you get into this character? Because she's a very complex character also.
It's funny. Whenever I hear the word unlikable, I get a small twinge of pride.
Okay.
Funnily enough, because I feel like the character is doing the work that I created her to do, which is to kind of challenge the notion that women need to expend unpaid labor to keep society functioning, to stitch the fabric of society together, to maintain this nourishing, calm, nurturing demeanor, to rise above adversity with a smile. And, I got into a really interesting argument with my neighbor who read the book, and she had the same thing to say, and we kind of went back and forth for a long time, and then she kind of finally admitted that if Noomi was a boy, like if she was
we probably would have accepted almost everything that she did.
Then she would have been a bit of a rock star, or she would have been like a Holden Caulfield kind of character, catcher in the Rye. We're a lot more forgiving of angry young men than we are of angry young women. Although I think that in some circumstances, women have quite a bit to be angry about.
Absolutely. I mean, we have so much to be angry about, and we will get into that. But now you write about Noomi, which is a girl from a small town discovering herself. That's kind of cliche. Weren't you worried about this when you began writing this book?
I'm going to push back a bit on the idea of a cliche, because if you really look at it, everything's kind of a cliche. Everything's been done before. And it's the job of the writer to kind of throw grit into the eye of the cliche, make it not cliche. And where the notion of the small town was kind of important to the plot, because there's a kind of claustrophobia that is in a small town, which you don't get in a big city. Like, you have a bit of anonymity, a bit of freedom. This is literally, you go like 2 blocks down and the chai wala knows the doodh wala, who knows your driver, who knows, and it's like having spies everywhere. And there's no sense of privacy. From the audience, have you grown up in a small town? What was it like? Did you feel a sense of anonymity? Did you move to a big city? I know a lot of my friends moved from a small town to a big city because they wanted to enjoy that sense of not being known, or not, their parents not finding out what they're doing. So
yeah, no, we'd love to hear from you if you've also felt that way, that small town is very, very claustrophobic. I even feel like maybe possibly even Delhi can be very claustrophobic with everybody knowing. Everybody does.
It's true. Yes. Yes.
But let's talk about, I think one of the things that hit me, maybe because it's so much in the news, the name Jay. Kareena just named her son that, and that is quite a coincidence, but he's the most lovable character in the book. And that is the father of Noomi, whose name is Jay. Where do you draw your inspiration from when you're creating your characters?
So, the story behind, trigger warning, the story behind Jay is a little sad. So Jay is actually the only character who's actually based completely on somebody in real life. Okay. And that person is my father. And I lost my father very tragically about 11 years ago. He had a heart attack. And I was passionately fond of my father. Like, my father and I were like this. So I think that I began creating Jay as a way to keep him, keep him alive, keep him in my life. Like, as long as Jay is on the page, my father is alive in some way. And so I really and he was such a charming person. He was such a, really the way Jay comes off on the page is really how my father was in real life. Nobody really ever had a terrible word to say about him. And he was a really kind person. So I wanted to bring all that. It's kind of just a way to keep your loved one alive. And in people, now everybody knows who Jay is, which is who my father is, in a way. And so that was one thing that I wanted to do, is to memorialize him in some way. And I think that he's going to show up in some way or the other. He's probably always going to show up in my work, because, I miss him so much. So
But
yeah.
we will come back to Jay, because one of the things about Jay, is that as lovable as he is, but the backbone, and we'll come back to that about his backbone and him not having a fierce backbone, and he doesn't stand up. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that, because our expectations, because I mean, a lot of it when we talk about the husband-wife relationship and Asha and Jay, and let us get into that, is because she really feels that she is lacking the support of her husband. And when we start to look at Noomi and Noomi with her husband, she again starts to feel that isolation, that nobody is in her corner and in her camp. So
Yeah.
what is it about these mama's boys or papa's boys, that they want to kind of adhere a lot and really don't actually support, or are they conflicted? I want to talk about that, because that's a very deep theme in your book, because the men
Yeah.
that we see, and almost all the men that we see, have some kind of conflict, and we'll get into that more, but specifically about Jay and then Numi's husband.
So yeah, so I think that toxic masculinity is toxic not only to women but to men, and a lot of men find themselves also trapped within the box of toxic masculinity or patriarchy, if you want to call it. And like Jay and Veera, typically those kind of they're not misogynistic.
No, they're very nice people. Yeah.
They're nice people, but they also find themselves trapped within that, the confines of toxic masculinity or patriarchy, and they find that they are unable to, question, like they're unable to stand up to their fathers. Now, why are they unable to do that? Well, that's a question for them, because that's unfortunately we're only in Numi's head, so we never really get to explore their points of view, or we never really hear their voice. But the fact of the matter is that they are men who have standards, who have beliefs, but they are unable to kind of breach a certain line. Maybe because it's so ingrained in them that you can't do that, or that's, or maybe they've just not found their voice yet. But it's definitely, we think of women as kind of as the victims of this kind of toxic mindset, but I think equally men can be victims as well. And I think that Jay and Veer are very clear examples of that. That they know what is the right thing to do, they know what they have to do, but they just find themselves unable to take that step.
Especially unable to stand up to their parents, and that is like the biggest problem. If I see both the men are having, they understand maybe what their parents are requiring may not be correct, but their ability to stand up to them is, and as you said, because we only see it through Numi's eyes, we see that weakness in them.
Yes, absolutely. That's right. And like I said, because of the choice I made in terms of the voice, we're only in first person narrative of Noomi. So we really don't get to hear. It would have been fun maybe to write from the point of view of Jay and from the point of view of Veer, but you have to kind of make an artistic decision at some point. You can't explore all avenues as fascinating as it is.
But it's good to explore, because sometimes what you're telling me, it's maybe the voices in our head are also amplifying these differences.
Absolutely.
Now let's do another track, the track of these social hierarchies and the judgment. And the reason we want to talk a lot about this judgment and the so-called log kahenge, because that's also a constant in the book. We're always worried about what will people say, and we're still plagued by it. And when we talk about log kya kahenge, what will my in-laws think? What will society think? What will everyone think? And you've written this novel in the present day, I mean, even 10 years ago, but in terms of traditions, it seems that we're still stuck in the 60s. We're still following the lifestyle, the traditions, the way we want our daughter-in-laws to behave, or even the girls to behave. And you see this very, very clearly in your book.
Well, I would love to hear from people in the audience about this, because I think that I'd love to see if we can find common experiences or common affect in this log kya kahenge affect. Because I definitely, when I was growing up, this was a big cloud over our heads as girls, that, you can't dress this way, you can't look this way, you can't talk to this boy. It was really claustrophobic, and the whole thing was, in fact, I grew up in a fairly liberal family. Like our inter-family relationship was not very hierarchical or misogynistic, but there was an impulse to protect us. I grew up with two other cousins. I mean, I grew up with three other cousins, and my cousins are beautiful. Like, they're very good looking women, and so there was this there's this desire to protect us or to shelter us or shield us. So it wasn't like they were really trying to say that, oh, you are bad for doing these things, but we don't want people to think badly of you. And therefore, we don't want you to do X, Y, Z, blah, blah. While my male cousins were like, oh, do whatever the hell you want, and it's fine. And, you're a boy and enjoy and be wild. But for the girls, we were all like, no, no, no. And, I definitely chafed against that. And like I said, like a lot of people I know, women especially, left my hometown and moved to bigger cities. Bombay was a big one, where they could kind of explore their personalities and try different things without this constant cloud of judgment.
Even Noomi does that, right? Because she does finally say, okay, you know what, this small town is too claustrophobic. I need to move out to actually discover myself.
Yeah, and she starts doing pretty well. It's ironical, right? Like, she becomes a journalist. She has this, she's living independently, and she's kind of like starting to find her feet. And then she, I don't want to put any spoilers, but then she's right back into it when she marries Veer, because then she's again in that Delhi, in that environment. So it's interesting, right? Like, she almost gets out of it, and then she gets pulled back in.
And that's a constant circle with her too. But
let's
talk absolutely about marriage, because I think, because you really see her becoming a person and becoming her own person. But you already know that in her, the voices in her head are already there. She knows that there is trouble in this marriage. And but our desire for this so-called normal, does it make us ignore the voices in our head? And we kind of keep saying, okay, everything will be hunky-dory. Everybody keeps telling us everything will be hunky-dory. Just kar lo, keep the peace. Abhi kar lo, kal dekh lenge. You don't need to live with your in-laws. But these voices in our heads are already telling us maybe this is not right, or this is not something that's right for me.
Yeah, I think so. Noomi is a very insecure person, and she doesn't have a strong sense of self. She doesn't have a strong sense of who she is. And I think that sense of self-identity is so important when you're entering into something as important as marriage or any kind of partnership, and she just doesn't have that. She doesn't have that anchor. And so she's kind of, it's funny, like, people are saying that she's non-conformist, but I think she's extremely conformist, because she wants to check all the boxes. She wants marriage, she wants kids, she wants all of that. But she doesn't have the equipment, she doesn't have the tools to do the work in those situations, or she doesn't have the strength of character to kind of stand up for herself and say, listen, this is where I draw the line. These are my boundaries. She can't do that because she's not self-reflective enough. She just does not have the set of tools that she needs to do that. And I think that, it's funny, it's a slight digression, but have you watched The Crown?
Yes, I have.
So this current season, I'm obsessed, for some reason, I'm obsessed with Diana, okay? And so, Diana, you see her getting into the marriage, right? And again, like, red flag after red flag, and there's like all these issues, but she just goes ahead, and everybody's like, no, everything will be fine after marriage. Just everything will find but it doesn't. And if she had listened to herself, she would have saved herself maybe a lot of pain and sorrow. And I think in Noomi's case also, she was so desperate to get that validation of marriage and a husband, and Veer's a nice guy and he's successful, and she just wants that thappa, that stamp, So she's willing to ignore a lot of red flags, a lot of alarm bells that are going off in her head. I think maybe that's something that we have, that a lot of people have in common,
No, and agreed. And I think that's a very important point, because as you delve into it, because of those insecurities, she also turns to alcoholism, right? So every time she feels insecure, right? So she's looking for a clutch. And that clutch for her becomes that bottle of alcohol, the rum, the whatever. So let's talk a little bit about that, because you explore that subject of her. It starts very slowly. right? And she starts, with like just saying, okay, maybe I'll just take a swig and it will help me get through this. But then it becomes almost a dependence to actually get through it.
Yeah. So alcohol addiction, mental health is something that I feel very passionate about. And I have read, I read a lot. One of the pivotal books I read about addiction was, it's called The Recovering by Leslie Jameson, and it's a nonfiction book. And it talks about Jameson's own relationship with alcohol. And there are many other. There's also this really good book called The Last Weekend, which is just describes alcoholism very beautifully. And so I read a lot of these books to kind of find a template or a way forward with this particular aspect of the novel. And I think that the illusion of control, like I've got this, like I'm in control, I can stop after 2 drinks, I'm good, I'm not one of these people who are like whatever. And then you lose control. And the point where you lose control is for me the most fascinating point, because what happens in that moment? How do you slip? How do you slide? And how reflective are you of what is happening? How long are you going to remain in that delusion that you're in control?
No, totally I agree, because you actually see, and that's why I want to come back to this, because this question of judgments, because the constant thing is that we are being judged. You see so much judgment happening, and it is this judgment that is constantly getting into her head also.
Yes.
The way that people are constantly judging her, or at least she's feeling judged. She's slightly old for marriage. She's less than average life. It's like shopping, and every time it is like making her feel less and less. But she's been told by everybody around her, just do it, just get through it, and so she's figuring out a coping mechanism to get through it.
Yeah, I think that isn't somebody raised their hand? I would be interested.
Yeah, I'm going to take the question from Neeta right next, and then Anjali after that. Go ahead.
Okay, great. All right, so the question of judgment, I think that maybe it is a universal feeling amongst women to be judged. I think that we definitely, again, I'm speaking maybe from my own personal experience, that I definitely felt judged on appearance, judged on my, the way I comport myself, the way I'm dressed. And Sukirti, I can't see you.
Oh,
there you are.
I'm here.
Okay. All right, great. So yeah, I think do women feel judged? I'd love to hear about that. Do you feel judged?
I think so, but we want to hear from all of you. Do you feel judged? Because I think that's a very central theme in this book. And when we see that judgment and we see what the impact of that judgment is and how severe that impact, I think 2 things that really hit you. One is, of course, when you look at your mother and that love that you need from her. The second is this restriction in the way that society has these expectations from you. But with that, hold on. We're going to take first the question from Neeta. Neeta, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I've been there, like meeting friends and talking to friends, and we discuss each other's problems and, daughters also. So I have 3 points to ask, like 3 daughters' relationship with the mothers. I want to ask if you can put some light on it. So one is a teenage girl. She was like in her 15 or 16 years old. She was in class 12. And she used to hide in the bathroom and sit with the mobile for a longer period. And the mother and father used to think maybe she has a boyfriend or something. But then they used to talk about the studies, and she won't answer anything. But she was a bright child. So, suddenly she was deteriorating in her studies and everything. So I could see the mother and the daughter's relationship was getting really poisonous. And the second point was like one daughter with the mother was like, she got married, she got divorced, and then she started drinking with the friend circle, and she started partying a lot. She would go for dancing and everything. And then she got married again because she found another nice, just like what your book is saying, she found the love, but not the happiness right till now. I think what I could see. So the same point I could see, and then I could just wanted to ask, what is your, point of view on that also? And that girl is like really in a misery right now. She's in a bad shape because the husband is not liking her drinking, the mother is not liking the drinking, and both of them are worried about her, but she is like very poisonous, very toxic towards them, both of them, like husband and towards mother also. The third scene which I could see is that the mother was talking about her daughter's marriage issue, that she's in her 30s, and she dated two boys but not settled for the marriage. The boys were not exactly ready for marriage, and now she's again in the misery that where should I find the boy properly. So the mother is pushing for marriage, that she wants to get her married with a maybe arranged marriage. She wants to show some boys photographs or put her in a marriage bureau or something, but denying, and then again the relationship is getting really poisonous. So yeah, there are 3 points I want to ask. Thank you so much for giving me my time. Yeah.
Go ahead, Naheed.
So I'm not going to address those particular women because I don't know how much of their story they were okay. I don't want to invade their privacy in any way. I think in terms of, something that struck me about judgment is there was a study done that around up till middle school, girls and boys have the same scores in math and all these other subjects. But starting from around 6th grade or, around the age of 11, girls' marks start going down because they become much more preoccupied with the way they look. And they kind of, there's more pressure on them to appear beautiful or whatever. And so they stop kind of focusing on academics, while boys have a longer period of time where they just can ignore the way they look and just focus on their studies or their life or whatever is their main source of interest. And I think so judgment seeps in that way. I think judgment and being mirrors of each other are very much like, it's all in conversation with each other. So, I don't know how to, Sukriti, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I think what happens is that I think it's very difficult to understand the mother and daughter relationship, and it's incredibly complex. And I think what reading this book definitely gives you the picture of is that how complicated the relationship is. Because when you see Noomi, you see her as very angry and a lot of hatred for her mother. And even till the end, she's not able to understand her mother. She's not able to understand her family. Yeah. So that hatred that's there. The second question, I think as society, this desire, like what we said, even in Noomi and even in all parents, we have this checklist. And this checklist that a person should get married, should do this, should do X, should do Y. And that pressure, I think that is again another big pressure that is building on probably both men and women. But seeing it a lot more on women that I got married at 45. So, I can just altruistically tell you, it doesn't really matter. Please get married when you are feeling right. Because if one thing the book tells us is when you are doing things and you're doing it for somebody else, the pressure on you, we think that, okay, we just turn, or kids just turn to drugs or to alcohol or X or Y because they're partying. No, because there is actually something much, much deeper. And it's probably because they're not able to possibly express themselves. And when you're not able to express yourself, you're not able to look out. You look for that, I again say that clutch, and the clutch becomes something. It could be a partying, it could be a negative, it could be drugs, it could be alcohol. Because everybody says, these voices in my head, I want them to just go away. I was very lucky because I had very supportive parents. Yes, they would always give the nudge. I'm not going to say that they were like brilliant.
Perfect.
No, the nudge was always there, but it was never a forceful nudge. And I think that's something that we also need to realize. And I think reading books like this makes you realize that how much psychological impact. I don't know. That's my takeaway, but I'd love to hear also. I think Anjali wanted to say something. Go ahead, Anjali.
Okay, yes. Thank you, ma'am. Actually, I want to share and ask something related to my life only. I'm of 28, and in my family there are 6 members, a mom, dad, and we are 4 siblings, and I'm the middle one. And from childhood only, I feel so left out in my own family. I don't know why. And I always try to get together with my mom. Not I will not tell anything about my father because he is very dearly to me. And yes, my mother is also dearly to me. But I don't know. There are so many circumstances that I feel that does he really love me? Does he really care about me? I don't know why. And the next moment I thought, no, she is my mother. She can't think bad about me. I have both the thoughts. But as when I was, I think like 8 or 9 years old, I called my mom that, are you my real mom? And this thing today also that thing hits me, that why did I call her that? I don't know what were the circumstances at that time, but today also I feel so, like I don't know what to say. And not only that, whenever I try to raise my voice in my family only, my 2 sisters, one is my elder sister and I have one small sister, they both used to judge me. They both used to tell me that teri to sochi aisi hai, you are a very negative person, like they always used to call me that. And there are lots of things that is happening in my life, sorry. But I could not, I don't know why, but sorry.
No, it's a big issue, and I think I don't know. At least this book, you understand that when we are looking, and I think one of the things that Anjali, even Noomi is in her head a lot more, and she cannot ever understand what is Asha. Asha is her mother, and who is Asha, and what is Asha, and why is Asha going through what? Because I don't know, but I would have Naheed answer. But at least when I read the book, because we are so centered around our own perspective that it's very difficult for us to understand maybe the trial and the tribulation or even the journey the other person went through. But Naheed, love to hear your point of view on this.
Yeah, Sukriti, I think you said it beautifully. I think, and you struck upon a really important point, which is that Noomi only views Asha from the lens of a mother. She does not view, or very only maybe later on does she start looking at Asha as a person with her own needs, her own desires, her own and I was reading this amazing book that talks about how we lay all of our society's ills at the feet of mothers, that oh, you had a bad mother, so therefore that is why you are the way you are, without really taking, instead of like looking at a system. So I think that Noomi wants something from Asha that Asha is just as a person unable to give. And Noomi is angry at her mother because she wanted her mother to love her. Asha does love her, but not in the way that Noomi wants. And so there's this void, right? Like there's the mother wound that exists inside Noomi, and she's trying to constantly fill it with all these other things like alcohol, relationships, and she's never really satisfied. So she's always looking. It's like being hungry, and no matter what you eat, you're always going to be hungry. Nothing is going to really fill your stomach because it's like a bottomless pit. But yeah, I think that being able to look at Asha as an individual, as a person, is a gestalt, an arc that I wanted Noomi to achieve, which I think to some extent, really the ending is kind of nebulous. So I don't really know but I wanted at least the reader to realize something that Noomi doesn't realize, which is that Asha is just not a mother. She is, she's Asha. She's a human being. She's a person. She has a history of her own. There are things inside her that prevent her or compel her to do certain things. And so basically, I think, I wanted the readers to be able to come to a point where they're not judging Asha for her actions or for her inability to mother Noomi in the way that Noomi desired to be mothered. Does that make sense?
Anjali? Oh, she's muted. 1 second.
Yes.
Go ahead, Anjali. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, I get that. I do love her so much and I can do anything for her. Yeah, but there there were so many situations and circumstances that I couldn't understand anything. And yeah, that is all.
Well, I think Neeta also, right? See, Anjali, we are all mothers, and I assure you that mothers love their kids unconditionally.
Yeah,
So
I know. Yeah, I know she loves me also, because yeah, I already told no mother can do anything. No mother can harm their children.
awesome.
I-
No, it is. This book is actually a very difficult book. That's why to read, because when you read this book, it's not easy. Because, like I said, we expect this perfect mother daughter relationship. And in society, we are also shown this perfect mother daughter relationship. And if the mother is broken for some reason, and in this book, the mother is broken. Yeah, because she had a life of her own. There's certain things that happened in her life that possibly did not go the way that she had expected her life to go. And so hence she was not able to possibly be the perfect mother, that we look at and we see in all these serials or XYZ.
Yeah, I think that we are definitely, and Noomi also is a victim of that we are conditioned to believe that a mother's love is unconditional, that a mother can never hurt their child, and a mother is always going to do the right thing and always sacrifice their own individuality for that of the child. And so anything that's an aberration of that is shocking, is difficult to read. But I think what that does is it kind of sweeps under the carpet a lot of complicated mother-daughter relationships that have their own dynamic, and there's no space for anything except for the perfect dynamic between a mother and child, which puts undue pressure. I mean, my question is, where is everybody else? Okay, you see that one parent is lacking in the skills or is unable to do this. But why Noomi's in a big joint family? Why aren't other people stepping in to fill the gap? Why is it like saying that, oh, well, Asha can't provide for Noomi, she's a terrible mother, but hey, we're not really going to do anything to ameliorate that situation or fix that. So by creating this Disney world of mother-daughter perfection or mother-child perfection, we're kind of absolving ourselves of our duty, or as family members or as part of society, to kind of fill in those gaps, and to make sure that everything is not laid at the feet of the mother, to ensure, and it's not possible, right? Like one person can't be everything to a child. Like that's why we have, in a lot of situations, we don't have single parents, we have a couple. And it's the system that raises the child, not just the mother, but everything is laid, good or bad, everything is kind of laid at the feet of the mother.
So Rachna is asking, I think this is really touching a chord also with me. How do we forgive our mothers if we are deeply hurt by them since childhood, and she is repeatedly doing the same things to you? Kind of the same pattern we see Noomi.
Yeah, I think that Noomi does not learn how to set boundaries. And I think that as adults, one of the greatest skills that we will ever learn is how to set boundaries, not just with our acquaintances and friends, but also with our families. And I read something really beautiful about a way that a boundary is a way that I can love me and you can love me as well. And a boundary doesn't mean that you're being disrespectful or you're being uncaring. It just means that you are telling somebody that, I need this space, or I need these limits to be able to function. And again, like I feel like mothers are not allowed to have boundaries. Mothers are supposed, your child wants something, drop everything and do it. You have to leave your job, do this, do that. And so the setting of boundaries for both parent and child is something that you can negotiate and understand and kind of come to a mutual understanding. But as adult children, sometimes having the freedom to kind of take a break from your mom or take a break from your dad, or just be able to kind of say, okay, I want to spend this time with XYZ. I don't have to come running to you. I don't have to do everything you say. And having the strength to do that is something that we can work on. And that's where, like, counseling, and there's this amazing there's so many amazing online resources now, Sukriti, for like mental health counseling, and there's so many on Instagram. I follow a bunch. There's brown girl therapy, there's Therapize in India. There's so many avenues now that will assist you. And I'm not a licensed therapist, so I'm not going. I can't give advice about how to do those things. But there's so many ways that now we can come to a point where we can set boundaries for ourselves that keep us safe and keep our loved ones safe as well.
So I know as we are running out of time, if anybody has any other questions, would love to take them. But I'd like to ask this, is happiness in our minds and in our control? We watch Noomi grow from a lonely, wild-hearted teenager, pining for her mother's acceptance and nurtured by her father's devotion, to a troubled young adult who finds love but not happiness. And she's continuously just seeking that happiness, but she refuses to self-reflect. And there's a certain hypocrisy because she refuses also to take responsibility for her actions, and it's constantly somebody else's fault.
Yeah, I think that unfortunately Noomi has not reached that point in her mental health journey where she is ready to say that, I cannot lay everything at the feet of my mother, at my family. I cannot blame my mother for everything. I am an adult. I am responsible for my own well-being. I need to start taking responsibility for that. She's definitely been a victim of, very sad circumstances, but she can't carry that victimhood out along with her throughout her life. I mean, that's not to say that it never leaves you. It's to say that, at some point you do need to kind of take cognizance of your life and your situation. And sometimes happiness is kind of a carrot that is dangled in front of us, right? Like sometimes happiness only arises from being aligned with a society. Like it's kind of difficult to be happy when you are courting the judgment or disapproval of your peers, of your elders, of everybody. So sometimes being happy means being conformist, and sometimes being unhappy, being authentic means being unhappy because you are kind of flouting, convention, or you're flouting what is the received wisdom from your particular environment. So maybe happiness is sort of also used to control behavior, if you understand what I'm trying to say, or comfort, because sometimes kind of pushing against your boundaries or setting boundaries can be deeply uncomfortable and deeply upsetting, but in the long term can ensure your safety or ensure that you have a ongoing relationship or an evolving relationship with the people that you feel are important to you in your life.
No, I'll definitely say, definitely this book raises a lot of emotions as you go through it. There are lots of parts that you will relate to. You'll say, okay, I get it. But it will explore a lot of emotions and a lot of deep emotions because it is written in the first person. And because of that, maybe you kind of say, okay, you kind of take it a little bit more as to reflect on your own life. I don't know, at least I did.
Yes, I think that the choice to write in first person was tough because it doesn't allow you any emotional distance from, you're kind of in Noomi's head at all times. And her head is not always a great place to be in because she's a very troubled person. So definitely you're feeling every emotion along with her, which can be good or bad. And, it is definitely taxing in some ways. But I wanted people to experience what she is experiencing, for good or bad, to be in her head, to live that. And I think that it's an exercise in empathy. I mean, a wonderful review of A Mirror Made of Rain said that, this book's unlikable character tells you a lot about yourself. Because I look at Noomi as like a litmus test for internalized misogyny or for empathy, because if you can't walk a mile in her shoes, to be very cliche, then that kind of helps you find the limits of your empathy or your understanding of somebody who's very different from you.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. I definitely, like I said, I loved reading it. But yes, I will warn everybody, this is not an easy book to read.
No.
So that definitely is there. Any closing thoughts as we end our session for today?
it's just been, this is the first Zoom live I've done about this book. And I just, the goal behind writing this book was to kind of start conversations about mental health and about subjects that, also the ways that shame and happiness are used to control behavior, not just in women, but also in men. And that is my hope, is that if people who read the book who have been like iffy about getting into therapy or iffy about, they will take that step, they will go and they will find the resources they need to feel better. And so that, yeah. And at the end of the day, I hope it's a deeply empathic, it evokes empathy in the reader, it evokes understanding, they come from a place of non-judgment, which you have, Sukriti, and I think you're like an ideal reader of my work. And, so yeah, like a dream reader.
Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we will see you back here on Sipping Thoughts. We have lots of amazing programs coming up. Thank you, Naheed, for joining us from New York.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay.